Daily Words of God. One works in order to satisfy the will of God, to bring all those who are after God's heart before Him, to bring man to God, and to introduce the Holy Spirit's work and God's guidance to man, thereby perfecting the fruits of God's work. Therefore, it is imperative that you are thoroughly clear on the substance of work. As one who is used by God, every man is worthy of working for God. That is, everyone has the opportunity to be used by the Holy Spirit. However, there is one point that you must realize. When man does the work commissioned by God, man has been given the opportunity to be used by God, but what is said and known by man are not entirely the stature of man. All you can do is to better know your own deficiencies during the course of your work and come into possession of greater enlightenment from the Holy Spirit. In this way, you will be enabled to gain better entry in the course of your work. If man regards the guidance that comes from God as their own entry and as something that is inherent within themselves, then there is no potential for man's stature to grow. The enlightenment that the Holy Spirit works in man takes place when they are in a normal state. At such times, people often mistake the enlightenment they receive as their own actual stature, because the way in which the Holy Spirit enlightens is exceptionally normal, and He makes use of what is inherent within man. When people work and speak, or when they are praying and making their spiritual devotions, a truth will suddenly become clear to them. In reality, however, what man sees is only enlightenment by the Holy Spirit and does not represent man's true stature. After a period of experience in which man encounters some difficulties and trials, the true stature of man becomes apparent under such circumstances. Only then will man discover that his stature is not so great, and the selfishness, personal considerations, and greed of man all emerge. Only after several cycles of experiences like this will many of those who are awakened within their spirits realize that what they had experienced in the past was not their own individual reality, but a momentary illumination from the Holy Spirit, and that man had but received this light. When the Holy Spirit enlightens man to understand the truth, it is often in a clear and distinct manner, without explaining how things came about or where they are going. That is, rather than incorporating the difficulties of man into this revelation, he directly reveals the truth. When man encounters difficulties in the process of entering, and then incorporates the enlightenment of the Holy Spirit, this becomes the actual experience of man. Therefore, at the same time that you receive the work of the Holy Spirit, you ought to place even more importance on your entry, seeing exactly what is the work of the Holy Spirit and what is your entry, as well as incorporating the work of the Holy Spirit into your entry, so that you may be perfected by the Holy Spirit in many more ways, and so that the substance of the Holy Spirit's work may be wrought in you. In the course of your experience of the Holy Spirit's work, you will come to know the Holy Spirit, as well as yourselves. And moreover, in the midst of who knows how many bouts of intense suffering, you will develop a normal relationship with God, and the relationship between you and God will grow closer by the day. After countless instances of pruning and refinement, you will develop a true love for God. That is why you must realize that suffering, smiting, and tribulations are not to be feared. What is frightening is having only the work of the Holy Spirit, but not your entry. When the day comes that the work of God is finished, you will have labored for nothing. Even though you experienced the work of God, you will not have come to know the Holy Spirit or have had your own entry. The enlightenment that the Holy Spirit works in man is not to sustain the passion of man, but to open a path for the entry of man, as well as to allow man to come to know the Holy Spirit. And from this point, develop feelings of reverence and adoration for God.
Over the course of experiencing the Holy Spirit's work, you gradually get to know Him as well as yourselves. And amidst the numerous instances of extreme suffering, you gain a normal relationship with God, and it grows ever closer. After much pruning and refinement, you develop a true love for God. When you receive the work of the Holy Spirit, you should focus on your entry at the same time. Sing exactly the work of the Holy Spirit. Sing your entry, trying to make His work part of it, so that you may be better perfected by Him, so that by this you will allow the substance of the Holy Spirit's work to be wrought in you. Wrought in you. You must see that suffering and smiting, they are not daunting. What's terrible is to have just the Spirit's work, but not your own entry. When the day comes that God's work is finished, you will have worked for nothing. Though you may have experienced His work, you will lack these two things. Oh, you still won't know the Holy Spirit. You still won't have your own entry. When you receive the work of the Holy Spirit, you should focus on your entry at the same time. Sing exactly the work of the Holy Spirit. Sing your entry, trying to make His work part of it, so that you may be better perfected by Him, so that by this you will allow the substance of the Holy Spirit's work to be wrought in you. The enlightenment of man by the Holy Spirit is not to sustain men's passion. It's to open a way out for the entry of man, to let them know the Holy Spirit, and from that develop a heart of reverence and adoration for God, for God. When you receive the work of the Holy Spirit, you should focus on your entry at the same time.